Doctors had given up hope. The little girl lay in her hospital bed, frail and fading, with only a few days left. But then, her puppy did something no one expected, something so powerful it moved hardened doctors to tears. This wasn't just loyalty. It was a miracle. Machines beeped steadily beside the bed where a frail little girl lay, her small hands clutching the blanket. Her parents sat close, their eyes red from endless tears. They had just heard the words no family ever wants to hear. The doctor's voice had been calm but heavy. There's nothing more we can do. She has only a few days left. Those words echoed like thunder in their hearts, shattering every ounce of hope they clung to. Nurses moved quietly, their faces solemn, each one avoiding the family's eyes because they knew the truth. This was a battle already lost. For the little girl, though, there was no fear in her eyes. Only sadness and longing. She didn't ask about treatments or medicine. She asked for one thing, her puppy, her best friend, her comfort in the storm. Long before the hospital walls surrounded her, the little girl's life had been filled with joy, and much of that joy came on the day a small puppy tumbled into her world. She had begged her parents for weeks, promising she would feed him, play with him, and love him forever. When they finally brought home a floppy-eared bundle of fur, her laughter filled every corner of the house. The puppy followed her to the garden, sat by her side during story time, and even curled up at the foot of her bed every night. Whenever she felt lonely or sad, the puppy's warm presence melted her fears away. As her illness worsened, the puppy seemed to sense it. He no longer played as wildly, instead sitting quietly near her, his head resting on her lap, his eyes never leaving hers. It was as if he knew her pain and had chosen to share it to her. He wasn't just a pet. He was a best friend, a secret keeper, and the one who understood her without words. And now, as doctors whispered of days left, she longed for him more than ever. The hospital bed became her world. White walls, the hum of machines, and the quiet footsteps of nurses filled her days. Every hour, her body grew weaker, her smile fainter. Doctors gently prepared the family for what was coming. Spend time with her, they said. Make these moments count. Her parents tried to be strong, reading her stories, holding her hands, whispering promises of love. But nothing could hide the fear in their eyes. And though the girl listened, her heart ached for someone else. Her puppy to AT first. The hospital hesitated. Pets weren't allowed in sterile rooms. But the girl's request was her only wish, and the staff, moved by her fading strength, finally agreed. When the doors opened and the little puppy padded inside, the room changed. Her face lit up brighter than it had in weeks. The puppy leapt onto the bed, gently pressing his paw against her hand, as if saying, "I'm here." From that moment on, he refused to leave. Day and night, he curled beside her, watching her every breath. To the family, it felt like love's last gift. To the puppy, it was simply duty, to guard the friend who had given him everything. From the moment he climbed onto her hospital bed, the puppy refused to move. His small body pressed close against hers, his paw resting gently in her palm, as though he was holding her in place, refusing to let her slip away. He ate little, drank little, and never once looked away from her face. Nurses who passed through the room began to notice something strange. Her vitals, which had been dropping steadily, seemed to steady each time the puppy nestled close. Her breathing grew calmer, her pulse a little stronger. As if his presence anchored her to the world she was slowly leaving behind at AT night. When the machines beeped in warning, he would lick her fingers or nudge her gently. And somehow, she would stir, whispering his name in the faintest voice. The medical staff exchanged glances. No medicine could explain it. The parents wept quietly, knowing time was slipping away, yet clinging to the hope that the puppy's love might buy them just a little longer. For the puppy, there was no confusion, no hesitation. He had made his choice. If his best friend was fighting to live, then he would fight with her, paw in hand, until the very end. The doctors warned the family to prepare. Still, the little girl's tiny hand never let go of the puppy's paw. One evening, as the sun painted the hospital room in fading gold, she turned her head and whispered, barely audible, "Don't let me go. Please stay with me." The puppy seemed to understand. His ears perked, and he leaned forward, licking away the tears sliding down her pale cheeks. Then, as if driven by something greater than instinct, He began nudging the call button with his nose, pressing it again and again until a nurse rushed in. At first, they thought it was an accident. But then they noticed. The girl's breathing had grown shallow, her heartbeat faltering. The puppy barked sharply, refusing to leave her side. His eyes locked on the doctors as if begging them to act. What followed stunned everyone. Emergency staff rushed to her bed, beginning procedures they might have been too late for, if not for the puppy's insistence. Against all odds, her vitals stabilized. Weak, fragile, but alive, the room fell silent except for the sound of machines returning to steady rhythm. Nurses looked at one another in disbelief. Parents sobbed, clutching the dog with gratitude. And as the puppy curled back into the crook of her arm, one truth shone brighter than any diagnosis. His devotion was keeping her alive. Doctors are trained to stay calm, to separate emotion from duty. But that night, the hospital staff could not hold back their tears. They had seen countless patients, countless goodbyes, but never a bond like this. One doctor, who had been practicing for decades, stood at the foot of the bed, his voice breaking. I've witnessed miracles of science, but this is love keeping her alive. Nurses wiped their eyes as they watched the puppy refuse to rest. His gaze fixed on the girl as if willing her to keep breathing. Even in moments when medicine faltered, the puppy's presence seemed to lift her, her heart rate steadying, her face softening with the faintest smile. The hospital had become a battlefield between despair and hope, and the smallest warrior among them wasn't wearing scrubs or carrying instruments. He was furry, determined, and unstoppable. Days passed, and what should have been her last became something different, something extraordinary. The little girl's color slowly returned, her breathing stronger, her eyes brighter. The doctors reviewed her charts in disbelief. Numbers that once spelled farewell now hinted at recovery. No treatment had changed. The only constant was the puppy. Every morning, he greeted her with gentle licks, his tail thumping against the bed frame. She giggled weakly, whispering, "You're my hero." And each time, her vitals seemed to climb a little higher, as though his love was medicine flowing straight into her heart. Word spread through the hospital. Staff came quietly just to glimpse the sight. A frail girl, once fading, now smiling, with her puppy curled against her side. Hope returned not just to her family, but to everyone who witnessed it. Against all odds, life was winning, and it was loyalty that led the way. Weeks later, the hospital room no longer felt like a place of sorrow, but a place of wonder. The little girl, once given only days, now sat up in bed, her smile lighting the room. Her parents clung to her hands, whispering thanks with every breath she took. And at her side, as always, was the puppy, her angel in fur. The doctors, though trained to trust science, admitted this recovery defied explanation. One of them said softly, "We can't write this in a report, but we know what kept her alive." Every nurse nodded, their eyes drifting toward the puppy who had never wavered, never left. The moment she was finally strong enough to walk the hospital hallway, the puppy trotted proudly beside her, tail wagging high, as if to declare victory. Patients and staff stopped to watch, many wiping their eyes. They weren't just seeing a child recovering. They were seeing the power of unconditional love. As she leaned down, hugging the puppy tightly, she whispered, "You saved me." And maybe she was right. Sometimes miracles don't come from medicine or machines. Sometimes they come from a heartbeat beside us, refusing to let go.